Jonas Vingegaard goes for the jugular, but Tadej Pogacar had other ideas. The second day in the Pyrenees, going up the mighty Tourmalet from Tarbes to Cauterets. Now, the final climb wasn't so difficult, 16 Ks, about 5-6% average, but the Tourmalet's a beast, 17 Ks at 7.5% to over 2,000 metres. Were Jumbo-Visma going to try and end the Tour de France today after, Vingegaard was good yesterday when Hindley took the yellow jersey and won the stage? How would Bora Hansgrohe approach the stage? So out of the neutral zone, we very, very quickly got an answer with Wout van Aert jumping in the breakaway with Julian Alaphilippe, and a pretty strong break went and got a gap. Van der Poel contributing and is blocked up by Bora Hansgrohe. The curious thing was they kept it on a pretty tight leash, under 3 minutes before the Col d'Aspin. Whilst this break was still moving with Asgreen and Van der Poel and Wout van Aert working, it wasn't like they were slacking off. And so what were Jumbo-Visma cooking up for this stage? Were they trying to take advantage of Pogacar's weakness the day before on Marie Blanc? They get to Col d'Aspin, and it's still Bora Hansgrohe pacing. Now, the gap does go out a little bit more, so Jumbo-Visma come to the front with Christophe Laporte to set a tempo, whilst pacing the front of the breakaway for Wout van Aert. So what's the tell? If Van Aert was just going for the breakaway, they would neither pace the peloton behind, nor would Van Aert just give a free ride to everybody else in the breakaway. And so with Van Hooijdonk setting a decent tempo and Van der Poel stretching the gap out before Tourmalet on the descent, it was clear that they were going for Jonas Vingegaard rather than Wout van Aert at this stage. And when they get to the beast of the climb, the gap is 440. And the first shallow slopes were very, very slow from the peloton. They even lost time to the breakaway as Alaphilippe tries to corral James Shaw into working with him in a senseless move, and Shaw says, "This is a senseless move. Maybe we should just wait for Wout van Aert, who's going to pace us as a freebie anyway." And that's eventually what happened. They slide back into the group and he just pretends the rest of the breakaway is not there, whilst Jumbo begin to pace with about 9.4 Ks to go for the breakaway for Jonas Vingegaard, but it's with Laporte, so it's not the biggest pace yet. Even when Van Hooijdonk takes over, he pulls for nearly 2.5-3 kilometers, and Pogacar and Hindley are laughing on the Tourmalet, but still Van Hooijdonk going. Macron is in attendance. He's about to see some fireworks. He picks a good stage, and Kelderman takes over. 50.6 Ks over that left for the GC group, and he reduces it to 5 riders immediately. Hindley trying to hang on the back of this group with Pogacar and the 3 Jumbo riders eventually or quickly distanced, and he would get brought back very, very quickly into the fold of the other podium contenders, and it was Sepp Kuss time. So we've got the 3 riders, Kuss the domestique of Vingegaard now virtually going into the Maillot Jaune, and Pogacar trying to defend with no teammates near him behind or near him ahead, and Van Aert's up the road too, so danger time for him. He has to hold Vingegaard's wheel as you see Hindley returning to Buchmann, Gaudu, the Yates brothers, etc., but Pogacar was on much better form today. Van Aert was able to make it over the top of the Tourmalet with this group, and when Vingegaard hits Pogacar with the big attack in the last 5 to 7 minutes of Tourmalet, Pogacar responds in the saddle much easier. Well, and he couldn't respond yesterday on Marie Blanc. His teammates were chasing, trying to come back to him to help if they could, which is curious because Hindley's actually ahead of Pogacar on GC, but they know Vingegaard's the real threat. But Pogacar was able to hold the wheel today. It would have been disaster for him if he was dropped with Van Aert ahead for Vingegaard, making it over the summit with Guerrero fine for that move on Johannesson. He could have lost big time. But now, Vingegaard's not dropped him. And on the descent, he even tried a little bit too, with Pogacar losing the wheel in a few corners. But now what do Jumbo-Visma do? We don't have the Col du Grenol coming up. That's, 11 Ks, 9% to 2,300 meters. It's a 16K, 5% climb, yes, with some steep sections. And so Van Aert rides now in the valley. They put 2 minutes into the Hindley group, by the way, and keeps that group behind. Pogacar starts flexing his wrist, perhaps the vibrations on the descent, putting him in a little bit of discomfort, and they catch up with the remnants of the breakaway ahead. But no one really wants to work with Van Aert, and so Van Aert just goes on the front. Ineos chase behind for Rodriguez on GC with Hindley in that group, and then Buchmann chases. Probably no point at that point. And here we go on to Cauterets. An up and down climb, gets steeper at the end, then levels off. James Shaw and Powers, the 2EF in the group, and you see here, they're on the quote-unquote climb and they're freewheeling and Wout van Aert's getting bid on. So there's a lot of benefit in the wheels in the draft on this climb. And Pogacar takes the sunnies off. He's looked comfortable. Vingegaard, what's he going to do? Van Aert's on the radio. Should I pace? Should I accelerate? How are you feeling? Is Vingegaard going to... he didn't distance Pogacar on the harder earlier climb. And here we get the moment of truth. 4.6 Ks to go. Van Aert does his final lead out and Vingegaard attacks again. And just like on Tourmalet, Pogacar's glued to that back wheel, easily in the saddle this time. And he's looking much more comfortable. And Kwiatkowski even comes back to Vingegaard for a little bit on this steep 3K section of the Cauterets. And it goes on, and Vingegaard paces on and on and on with Pogacar glued to the wheel with no movement behind. Pogacar begins looking, though. Look, why is he looking behind? It's not because he thinks Mike is going to appear out of the ether to help him. He's checking the gap behind so he can play with Vingegaard and launch this huge attack, blistering pace just before the steep section ends, follows the moto in the middle of the flares, iconic images, flips the script on Jumbo-Visma and Jonas Vingegaard. The Tour de France, it's not over after one stage Marie Blanc, and he's taking time on Vingegaard, who was surprised by the attack, couldn't get back to his wheel, and you can visibly see it's leveled off, and they go from 16 kilometers an hour up to 20. Bernal pacing for Rodriguez to attack, but he can't distance Hindley. And Pogacar's gap goes from 7 to 10 to 15 and balloons in the last shallower kilometre with Pogacar finishing the stage and the climb. Big statement from him. 10th Tour de France stage win, takes a bow and throws a haymaker right back at Vingegaard after the disappointment of the day before. So we have a Tour de France on our hands. It ain't over like 2021. Pogacar winning the stage 24 seconds ahead of Vingegaard, 122 ahead of Johannesson, then Guerrero, Shaw, Hindley, Rodriguez, the Yates brothers and Bardet rounding out the top 10. Still huge gaps to the other guys. Here's what Pogacar had to say after the stage.
Honestly, were you a little bit worried after losing close to a minute yesterday on Jonas?
Yeah, who wouldn't be? The display Jonas showed yesterday was incredible, and I was thinking when they start pulling on Tourmalet, if it's gonna happen like yesterday, then we can pack our bags and go home. But yeah, luckily I had good legs today and could follow on Tourmalet quite comfortable. And then when I felt this is the right moment in the end, I attacked, and it was a big relief.
The gap is now a lot smaller. It's around 30 seconds on Jonas. You're optimistic, I suppose.
Yeah, I would say now it's almost perfect, the gap, and it's gonna be big battle until the last stage, I think.
And in terms of GC, Vingegaard goes into the yellow jersey and he's got a nice lead of 25 seconds ahead of Pogacar, but how will he be feeling after today's disappointment? Hindley, though, a nice gap in third too. Back with the sprint stage tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed the video, and then we've got Puy de Dôme on Sunday. I'll see you with a recap then. Ciao.